In 2014, the Islamic State had swept across much of Syria, overtaking cities and spreading terror as civil war raged all around it. As ISIS approached a town called Kobani, a group of Kurdish female fighters armed with AK-47s and a lot of courage were determined not to let ISIS take their town, their homes, or their families. Although they had braided hair and painted fingernails, when it came to fighting ISIS, they were as fierce as any male army.
They weren't just fighting ISIS, but they were leading in battle, leading men and women in the fight against the extremists of the Islamic State.
In her book, The Daughters of Kobani, author Gail Samak Lamon introduces us to these women, including Azima, a sniper determined to stop ISIS at all costs.
Even when so many people had lost faith that Kobani would not fall, she would absolutely tell everybody, including her fighters and including her sister, who sometimes called while she was in the middle of battle, literally taking fire from the Islamic State. She would say, "We will not lose Kobani. We will fight until the end and we'll win."
Was ISIS afraid of these female fighters?
Yes, you asked me about Azima. Azima had a great story about how, at the beginning, she would hear on the walkie-talkies the men from ISIS say, try to pick off the women, try to kill the women first. And then at the end, when they saw what good snipers they were, they would be on the radio saying, "Hey, don't get too close to those women snipers. They're very good." And they took that as a huge compliment. And there was also the fact that their men of the Islamic State felt they couldn't go to paradise if they were killed by a woman. And they would get on the radio and really say terrible things to these women, who then used it as motivation to power them in their fight against ISIS.
Lamont's research into the Women's Protection Forces took her to the front lines, where she also spent time with Christian female fighters.
And, one young woman from a Christian family told me that her mother at first did not approve of her joining the all-women's force. And then, ISIS by then had kidnapped Christians in the Habor Valley. And when her parents would go to church, people would come up to them and say, "We're so proud of what your daughter is doing." And I really hope that the Daughters of Kobani does justice to the courage, the bravery, the power of these young women.
The battle for Kobani was considered a turning point in the war against the Islamic State. How big a role did this female militia play in freeing Kobani from the grip of ISIS?
Women were front and center in the fight to stop the Islamic State. And in Kobani, this was their first battlefield defeat. And women played a central role in handing it to them. Lamont says their battle skills earned the respect of U.S. Special Forces fighting alongside them. And there's a story of one man who said, when I saw how many young women, ponytails and AK-47s going off to fight ISIS, I thought, wow, this is definitely a first for me. They are real and true warriors. For many of these women, this was not just about defeating ISIS, although that was their major focus, but giving women more equality in the Middle East. Do you think they achieved that goal? There is no question that the next generation of girls born will see women protecting them in that part of Syria and in that part of the region. And there's a story that's in the book when they finally clear the town of Manbij of the Islamic State. A woman comes out and sort of puts her hands on the faces of the young women and said, "We didn't even know you were real. We heard about you, but we didn't know you were real." And I think that's the power of seeing what women can be. About Azima, she was injured not once, but twice. Pretty badly. Yes. The second time. Whatever happened to her? One of the most beautiful moments of reporting this was when she was telling me about this moment when she's injured the second time by the Islamic State. And you want to talk about force of will. She's sitting there and she says, "I will not die because that will be a gift to them. Wow. I will be here to see my people through to victory." And so she's on the radio with her fighters saying, "Listen, show the men who bought and sold women what we are capable of, and know that even if we fight and die, we will have died for something that matters." Wendy Griffith, CBN News.